Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Jessica Griffin, and I'm a psychologist with a specialty in trauma. And I'm also the mom of three children. And I am joined here today by my dear friend and colleague, Dr. Heather Forkey. Heather, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. It's so great to be with you, Jess. My name is Dr. Heather Forkey. I'm a pediatrician, and I'm also the mom of five kids, which means that the things that we hear and the things that we talk about are true not just for us professionally, but these are things that we live too.
Yeah. And one of the things we're going to talk about today is stress, parenting stress, family stress. And I know we're also feeling it too, but we have been getting so many calls to our centers and emails from parents who are talking about just how stressed out their family is lately and that their children's behavior is out of control. And by the way, parents feel like their behavior is out of control also. And so we're going to talk about that today. Heather, what do you think about all this?
I think one of the most common things that we're seeing is that we are living in a really stressful time, and much of it is scary. It's scary outside in the wider world, and a lot of those things that are frightening are happening within our own families. And we have two parts of our brain. They've got part of our brain that's the lower part of the brain is primitive, and it's responsible for trying to keep us safe. And there's the higher part of our brain, which is responsible for thinking and being more logical. But when we live in times that are so scary, we go down into our lower brain. And so what we see in terms of how we're reacting often relates to that lower brain, that growling out of the lower brain as the body and the brain is trying to do all it can to keep us safe in these times that feel so dangerous and unsettled. Many times, like these moms and dads that are calling us, they're mentioning the fact that it's behavior that is concerning to them, and behavior for themselves and behavior for the kids. And when we talk about behavior, sometimes we isolate that as if the behavior happens in just on its own. But we know that behavior is really related to the thoughts and the feelings that are behind that behavior. And that's what we call the cognitive triangle. When I came home last night and found dishes in the sink piled up and I started yelling, I wasn't just having yelling behavior. That was related to the thoughts that I was having. Thoughts about, wow, I've now got a whole lot of work to do, and feelings like I'm overtired and I really can't handle more work to do tonight. And so the behavior that my family had to deal with really wasn't in isolation, and they needed to turn to those thoughts and feelings and address those so we could move forward. Jess, I know you've taught me some other ways to think about how we can help when it's behavior that we're seeing that's concerning.
Yeah, Heather, there are a number of strategies that parents and families can use. But if you remember anything, remember the three R's. And the three R's are reassurance, routines, and regulation. And by teaching or practicing the three R's, what we're doing is helping kids calm down that stress response so they can then engage that thinking brain that you were talking about, Heather. So starting with reassurance, kids need to know that at the end of the day that they are safe, that they are loved, and that the grown-ups are doing everything they can to make sure that they're safe and that they're loved. Right now, I call my kids Velcro kids sometimes because it feels like they're all over me all the time. And right now, our kids may need just a little extra reassurance. So you may need to repeat those messages throughout the day in a variety of ways, whether it's through a sticky note or reassuring them that they're safe and that they're loved. The second R in our three R's is routines. And routines structure help children by sending signals to their brain that they're safe, that those predictable patterns are something they can learn to count on. And that will actually bring down that stress response in the child's brain and body. So what does that routine need to look like? Does it need to be every 15 minutes that you have something scheduled? No, but it's some sort of predictable pattern of play, of work, and around bedtime. So if you're not doing a bedtime routine, that's a great place to start. Something simple as turning down the lights, doing a bath, reading a book, and then singing a special song, whatever works best for your family, but making sure you're doing that every day and having that predictability for the child. And then the last R is regulation. What are regulation skills we can teach to our children and also practice ourselves? And regulation involves two things. One is helping kids identify how they're feeling. by teaching them feelings words and practicing feelings words such as scared, nervous, sad, lonely. But the second part beyond teaching feelings is teaching relaxation skills or practicing relaxation skills together. And those relaxation skills could be things like teaching deep breathing or belly breathing, yoga poses or stretching, taking a walk, listening to music, taking a shower. And what works for one child may not necessarily work for the other, but that's okay. See what works for your child. And by the way, also what works for yourself, making sure we're also practicing our own regulation and relaxation skills ourselves. Knowing that, at the end of the day, none of us are perfect parents. We don't get it right 100% of the time. I'm lucky if I get it right 25% of the time. But children are going to be just fine if they consistently know that caregivers love and take care of them and keep them safe. And we know the number one factor in recovery from trauma is the presence of just one supportive caregiver. It only takes one of us, one parent, one caregiver, to buffer the impact of stress and trauma on a child. Heather, anything else you want to add?
Jess, that was great. The only thing I will add is that sometimes we forget about the teenagers, and that even the older kids need that same reassurance, routines, and regulation skills. So keep them in mind when you're doing the 3 R's as well.
That's a really good point. And the last thing I'll say here is that there may be times where the behavior is so out of control that we're not able to manage it on our own. So don't hesitate to reach out to your pediatrician or local mental health provider for additional help or resources for your family. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope that this information has been helpful to you.